Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Facebook Live event, Environmental Women of Gary. We're really excited to be here this afternoon, and I'm really excited to help facilitate this conversation with some really exciting and strong leaders in the city of Gary who are working in the environmental field. And this is helping us to kick off National Park Week for us here at Indiana Dunes National Park, and also for Green Gary Week, which is part of the Park Service is partnering with that, as well as our partners here. It is Green Gary Week and Earth Day Week, and so we have lots to celebrate. Yeah. So my name is Kim Swift, and I am the Director of Education here at Indiana Dunes National Park. And I have four really great women here with me to talk about the Environmental Women of Gary. I have Junifer Hall with the Katie Hall Foundation. I have Brenda Scott Henry from the Office of Sustainability and Environmental Affairs for the City of Gary. Ashley Overton works with Brenda at that same office. And I have Lori Latham from Wessler Engineering. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. We also have Krista King as our interpreter. So we're going to kick things off, and I'm going to kind of pose a couple questions and share how we kind of got this topic going here at Indiana Dunes. I've worked here at the Dunes for over 20 years, and one of the things that I've recognized is I've read our histories about the park and how it was created and how this region was preserved, is that women were a key and strong part of the formation and of these origin stories of our park. But women tended to not always get representation when in the history books and in the telling of how this national park and how this region was developed. So we started looking, as a group, we started looking at these stories and kind of raising up the stories of women in our history and looking at, what the full story is of how they really helped shape the environmental field and how they really helped shape and preserve so many of our green spaces. And then from that, I started looking, though, and seeing that we couldn't always just stick with the easy stories, right? And so I started looking around and saying, how come that it's primarily, white women that I'm finding the stories for? That can't be right. What am I missing? Whose story is getting told and whose story is being left out? So we started looking a little deeper and looking at, some different sources. And some of the sources are these women right here that I tapped into and started asking, who are the women of Gary and of this region that have been doing the really good, strong work of lifting up green space and environmental work for our communities here. And so that's where the kind of genesis for this panel discussion kind of came from. So I just wanted to kind of start that off, and I'm going to turn it over and let these women tell their stories of how they got into this field and who their influencers were, who their who shaped their careers and helped inspire them in this kind of work. And I just want to shout out there to everyone who's watching and participating with us. Send us your comments. Send us questions in the comment section of Facebook. And we want to hear from you on whose story are we leaving out? Whose story do we need to lift up? So Junifer, I'd love for you to take it off from here, if you will.
Yes, thank you so much, Kim. Good afternoon to everyone. As Kim stated, my name is Junifer Hall. I'm the chairman and CEO of the Katie Hall Educational Foundation Incorporated of Gary. This afternoon, I am so humbled to be a part of the Environmental Women of Gary virtual presentation, along with our distinguished panel of environmental participants and scholars. And again, a warm thank you to Ms. Kim Swift for inviting me to participate in today's program. The Honorable Katie Hall, the first African American, male or female, to represent the state of Indiana in the United States House of Representatives, was very active in promoting environmental issues during her tenure in Congress. U.S. Representative Hall was also the first woman of African American descent to represent Northwest Indiana in both the Indiana House of Representatives and the Indiana Senate, where she also championed environmental issues as well. As a member of Congress, the Honorable Katie Hall wrote a major piece of legislation entitled the Interior Appropriations Bill, known as Public Law 97 394. The purpose of the Interior Appropriations Bill was to fund the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore Development Project. More specifically, this law provided funding for the following: $75,000 for project planning of the Paul H. Douglas Center, $1.4 million for land acquisition, $270,000 for advanced planning of the East Unit Information Center, $200,000 for advanced planning of the West Unit Information Center, $250,000 for project planning of the West Unit Access Road, and other funding provisions. Moreover, Public Law 97-394 appropriated over $600,000 to the National Park Service to perform preliminary engineering for the needed road improvements at the intersection of County Line Road and US 12. The National Park Service, under this legislation, was appropriated funds as outlined to construct an information center where visitors to the park can leave their cars, board shuttles, obtain information, and so forth while touring the park. In celebrating Earth Week and Environmental Women of Gary, let us remember the work of U.S. Representative Katie Hall of Indiana's 1st Congressional District, which includes Gary, and others in preserving one of our most natural resources, the environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Junifer. That was excellent.
Thank you.
And that's really interesting to hear all about, what the ideas were around that bill, some of which came to fruition, like the Douglas Center, some of which, the planning may be changed a little. So thank you. Thank you for sharing
Thank you.
that.
Thank you.
Let's go now to Brenda Scott Henry. Can you tell us a little bit about your career and who influenced you?
Sure. Thank you, Kim, for inviting me to be on panel today. And I am so thankful to Junifer and Attorney Hall for preserving the work of Katie Hall through the Katie Hall Foundation. We had a wonderful event that they had just last Friday, not this past Friday, but the Friday before, down in Indianapolis. So they're doing great work, and so I appreciate that. So my journey in my professional career, I am a community economic development practitioner. So that means that I work with the community to help them shape their ideas and put them into fruition and making sure that we put an economic development component in their planning so that it sustains itself long term. And I've been doing that since about 2001. And I happened to enter into the environmental world around, I want to say 2002, where I met Doreen Carey, who was the environmental director at the time. And she had hired me on to do some work with her through some grant programs as her education and outreach consultant. From there, I really didn't know that I had a passion for the environment, but I'm glad that she did. And so it wasn't just her, but it was people like Jim Myers, Attorney Jim Myers. And at that time, Spike Peller was the director of Gary Sanitary District. And they gave me the opportunity to go after some grants for them. And then we started implementing the grants. And as of that, I became a consultant for the city in the environmental world by, I don't know if it's coincidence, but I will say maybe predestined. And as a result, I've been working with the department since that time. Lots of things have happened. I've learned a lot from being around Doreen Carey, and I have to give her props because she's adamant about and very passionate about what she does and what she knows, and she shares that in different ways. And I had the opportunity to be exposed not only locally here, but once I became director of environmental affairs, I had the opportunity to be exposed nationally on a national and an international platform, advocating for the work that we were doing here in the city of Gary around sustainable development. When these Strong Cities, Strong Communities White House initiative was here under the previous administration, it really afforded me the opportunity to work with EPA, Transportation, Department of Labor, Housing, and some other federal departments where we could put plans together and then do some implementation of those plans. And that led us to doing things in the city like green infrastructure planning, local food, local places planning, cities connecting children to nature, love your block, climate action planning, stormwater quality management planning, the Green Link Trail, working on watershed plans, and working with conservation, working with the urban forestry. And I want to say that I don't know if those opportunities would have been presented to me had we not had those opportunities to work in a leadership capacity with federal government. But there are a lot of regional things. I don't want to short our regional efforts here in Northwest Indiana under the Northwest Indiana Regional Planning Commission, where I serve on the Environmental Management Policy Committee, where we are talking about how we move the city forward, the region forward in terms of environmental policies and practices. So my most influential persons, I want to mention that is, of course, it would be Doreen Carey, but people like Jim Vanderkloot, who works for EPA. And I have to give credit to my roots. So my mother, my grandmother, who taught us about appreciation for the environment at a very early age, living in a rural town where we were able to explore something that kids are not able to do today. Just explore your community, go on trips, fishing, hiking, just learning the different types of elements. Like I didn't know about sloughs and and ponds and those type of things, and which was the best fishing places to go to. So I have to give credit to my grandmother and my mother and my father for allowing us to just explore the rural areas in growing up. That's all I have.
Excellent. No, that's excellent, Brenda. And I really loved how you added in there about your childhood experiences and how your mother and grandmother helped to shape those. I think that is maybe something universal, for I would guess for
Yes,
many of us.
thank you.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Lori, how about you? You ready to share your story with us?
I am. Thank you so much again for the invitation, Kim, and to Miss Hall, to Miss Henry. You guys have given me so much energy. So I'm glad I had the opportunity to go after you two. 'Cause I'm feeling really energized and inspired by you. And I've enjoyed working with Ashley, so I can't wait to hear what she brings as well.
Yes.
I started in community organizing, actually, and I'm glad Miss Henry reminded me that I get it from my mama. Right, my mother and my dad, they were both very politically active. My mom was a precinct committee person when I was growing up. So I like to share with people, I started knocking on doors. The first time I remember knocking on doors was about the age of 6 years old. I grew up that way. And that's how I came to this work as a community organizer, doing community cleanups, community gardens. And the emphasis was on the word community. One of my first jobs after coming back to the area was with the organization called Groundwork Gary, where I was reacquainted with Miss Henry. We have a long history that goes back a little bit before then, but I was reintroduced to Miss Henry as a professional while doing my work at Groundwork Gary. One of my first jobs was to find find communities, community organizations, neighbors to adopt orphan community gardens. The city of Gary had implemented a community gardening program as a way to approach blight remediation and brownfields. But community gardens are a lot of work, which a lot of people learned early on, and many of them have been orphaned. So when I came to Groundwork Gary, that was one of the first things I did. And I remember the night before going to Lowe's and buying some seeds. And I was just as surprised as everyone else a few weeks later when lettuce started growing out of the ground. Because that hadn't been my experience. So again, it was less about the garden, more about the community. But I'm reminded also of a quote by Vernon Johns, who was the pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church before Martin Luther King came. He used to say, "If you see a fight, get in it." So after working in the Office of Environmental Affairs with Groundwork Gary, I was introduced to environmental and climate justice. Mary Mulligan, who was in the office at the time, was a huge environmental and climate justice leader. And I learned a lot from her. I attended meetings because of her, and that really ignited my fire around the justice element and of the environmental movement. Seeing how Black communities are disproportionately impacted by pollution, by industrial pollution, by contamination, and by many of these other issues. Currently, I serve as the Environmental and Climate Justice Chair for the NAACP. Our main issues are increasing climate resilience. And so we work with organizations like the Office of Sustainability and Environmental Affairs, and making sure that marginalized communities are heard and included in the climate action planning. We're also very busy now working with just transition, making sure that as our country transitions from fossil fuels and dirty forms of energy, that Black, brown, poor people are included in a just transition, that we do find our place in the green economy, that we are trained in workforce development programs, that we do get the training that we need in order to participate in the green economy and in that workforce. And then currently during the day, how I pay my bills is I work for Wessler Engineering, which is a water resource engineering firm that focuses on stormwater, drinking water, and wastewater, basically keeping the water clean and running properly. I think I talked a little bit about who inspired me. I'm also inspired by the work of Mayor Hatcher, by the work of Katie Hall. When I go into the environmental space, I am proud to say that I'm from Gary because of our rich history and our connection to moving the environmental justice movement, the environmental justice movement forward. So it's just in my blood. Again, thank you for this opportunity, Kim. Where did Ashley go?
Uh-oh. Thank you. I think she's coming here. There she is. Thank you, Lori. That was excellent. Thank you. It's a great story to share. And so, yeah, I'd like to pitch it over to Ashley Overton then. Ashley, can you hear us okay? And I know you're having a few connectivity problems.
Yes. Hopefully
You're on,
everyone can
Ashley.
hear. Pretty much, can you hear?
Yes and no, Ashley.
Hello?
There you go. Now you're coming in good. All right.
Okay, can you hear me now through this end?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. All right, awesome. Sorry. Okay, so yes, I'm Ashley Overton, and I serve my community as the urban conservation and project coordinator for the City of Gary's Office of Sustainability and Environmental Affairs. And so just a little background about me. Pretty much started in this field, I had no knowledge or previous experience with this. So originally, I had aspirations to succeed within the legal and political field. At that time, I was pursuing my degree in political science and legal studies with hopes to become an attorney, and then one day become like the first African-American Supreme Court justice for the US. So that was my goals back then. And, hopefully one day still that can come forth true. While pursuing my degree and also advancing within the legal field, I did a couple years working in a foreclosure law firm in inner city Chicago. And just during that time there, just not really passionate about what I was doing. And so after about 2.5 years, I left and started my position with the City of Gary as a AmeriCorps Vista. And so through there, simultaneously, throughout that time, I was also had small interest in the green field or green lifestyle through respecting of natural products and respecting of natural items and things like that. And then also living a vegan, vegetarian lifestyle. But what heightened it was my experience with the City of Gary and under the leadership of Director Brenda Scott Henry, just overall teaching me how environmental health and environmental justice and equity is also linked to civic leadership and civil justice. So, having that inspiration and mentorship from Director Brenda Scott Henry, and also working with Lori Latham with her passion for environmental justice and advocacy has really been an important factor. So, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. No, thank you, Ashley. That's excellent.
Can I say Ashley's being really modest, and probably me too. Somebody could probably say that about me, but Ashley came on as an AmeriCorps Vista, and while working with me, I forgot that she was just beginning in my department. So the more the more projects that I gave her, the more she was absorbing that and taking them and moving them to the next level. And she often have to remind me that, Miss Brenda, I only been here for a year. Miss Brenda, I only been here 2 years. So Ashley has a great passion for her work, and I really appreciate her being on our team and being that connector in the city of Gary from community to government. So she bring up a strong. She fills that gap tremendously, and people love her and enjoy working with her. So I appreciate you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you for sharing your stories. And I guess if I can prevail on you for just really briefly to wrap this up, maybe if each of you would maybe share like what advice would you give to a young woman who wanted to get into this field? What would you tell them to do or not do? Ms. Hall, would you like to start us off?
Yes, I can. First of all, again, Kim, thank you. And to the other program participants and Miss Brenda Scott Henry, or Mrs., I should say, thank you so much for your attendance last week in Indianapolis. We really enjoyed seeing you. And to Lori and to Ashley, thank you for your work in the community. And I've worked with both of these fine ladies, Lori with the NAACP Gary branch. I really enjoyed listening to her reports, her committee reports, and Ashley worked with our block club when there was the Love Your Block project sponsored by the city of Gary, and she did help us plant flowers here. Thank you so much. Well, the advice I would give to someone wanting to enter the environmental area is to train with someone such as Mrs. Henry, such as Lori, such as Ashley, and to work with them and to learn from them. Hands-on experience is the best. And I know that from experience myself. So maybe a young person could help plant a flower garden, or they could help clean up in their communities and pick up waste. It doesn't take a lot of money and a lot of time. Some things you can do yourself. And get involved in your community is the best advice that I can give anyone. It only takes one person, and change begins with you.
Excellent. Thank you. That's good. That's great advice.
Mhm.
Brenda, what would you tell a young woman wanting to get into this?
I would say, for in my experience, it's my background didn't say environmental,
Mhm.
but it also said environmental because it's where you live, work, and play.
Mhm.
So having an appreciation for your environment, caring about where you live, um, is the first thing that you will lead you on your path in the environmental world, or as an environmentalist, I would say. And get involved, as Junifer mentioned. Um, we have a host of opportunities in our department for one to volunteer. Every year we have interns. We start with not only college students, but we also work with young folks. We would really love to get our youth climate team back together and moving forward. So we enjoy working with youth because we try to develop programming that will introduce them uh, to our natural environment, and then how you can play a role in that. Most importantly, it's just a part of our world to do public education and outreach. So as we create these venues or activities for the public to participate in, just expose your children to these activities, because there are a lot of professionals that we work with who and could provide them with any type of information you want to know about your environment. I started with talking to folks about the water cycle, which was really important. I mean, at that time, I think when I said storm water, nobody knew what I was talking about. Or if I said green infrastructure, no one knew what I was talking about. And if I said watershed, no one knew what I was talking about. So I started with something as simple as talking about the water cycle. So as I would advise us as professionals, start with people where they are, and then just if you're looking for an opportunity, I think there's not one that we haven't laid set a table for you to not be involved. So please participate, involve, expose your children to these opportunities, because there is a career path, and there are good salaries associated with what we do, because it's technical work as well as social. There's a community or social aspect to what we do.
Excellent. Yeah, I like how you said too that it's environmental with a big E, right? It's not just going out and hiking in the woods or things that people typically think of. It's environment is your community, it's your family, it's your home, right? That's a good message. Lori, what about you? What would you tell young women?
Sure. Some of the first one of the first things I remember, some of the best advice I remember getting early on was to find other female counterparts. When I started in community organizing, I was young, I was cute, and attracted a lot of men. And men are great. A lot of times they have resources, they always have a lot of advice, but women work. And this type of work is work. So find other female counterparts. Another thing, and it's a lot, the second verse is a lot like the first. Find your community. And if you can't find your community, then you build community around you. Many times as an environmentalist, I find myself in a lot of environmental rooms where I'm the only Black person. And then in a lot of, Black spaces, I find myself the only environmentalist. So what I try to do and try to be very intentional about is, if I'm the only Black person in the room, or if there's only a few Black people in the room, then I want to connect with those other Black people. I want to recruit other Black people to the work. Same way, if I'm in a Black room and I'm the only environmentalist, I want to make sure that I'm connecting with others who are like me, who are like-minded, that I'm developing new leaders in the work. So either find your community, and if it's not there, build it. Also bring your whole self to work. And I think a lot of times about what current age Lori wishes she could say to a much younger Lori. And when I was younger, I found myself leaving certain parts of me out of the room, right? Not always bringing all of my femininity into a room, or all of my Blackness into a room. Sometimes I shrank if to try and match the energy in the room, or didn't speak up when I knew I had the answer, or an answer, or an idea. So I would just encourage all the young women out there to bring all of it into the room with you. Don't feel like there's any part of yourself that needs to be left outside. Something Brenda Scott Henry taught me was to sustain your work. It's hard to do this work without money. So find ways to make your work sustainable, whether it's fundraising, grants, all kinds of creative ways to, networking, all kinds of ways to get the resources that you need to sustain yourself and to sustain your work. And then the last one is just get some rest, right? Take a nap, get some rest. God built a whole world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. So God ordained rest. He created us to rest. So especially as women, especially doing work that we are deeply passionate about, it's tempting just to keep going when you're tired or to keep going when you're sick. But I would absolutely advise everybody, especially young women entering the work, to get you some rest. Prioritize your rest and your wellness.
Thank you, Lori. Those are really good words for us all to hear. Definitely. Ashley, what would you like to say to young women?
Oh, sure. So overall, just kind of speaking to the similar experience that Lori mentioned was that, not being afraid of being the only one in the room. Also, from my experience, is that walking into a room, I'm in some cases the only woman, and then also the only Black woman, and then also being in that Black environment is being the only environmentalist. And so, and as I said, don't be afraid, just rather overall be empowered and know that, like, your voice and your experiences and your perspectives is always desperately needed and is desired. And so this is my little spiel or advice. And also don't be intimidated, from your background. Walking into this, I was kind of overall intimidated because I did not have the degrees in environmental and, the work experience. But from what I've learned is that your passion will make up for it. And your passion will, in most cases, some cases, put you above those who do have that degree and do have that experience. And so that's my advice.
Yeah, I can definitely corroborate that from some of the history and the work that I've done, and looking back at a lot of the women who have shaped Northwest Indiana. Yeah, they did not, many of them were educators or teachers and came about this from all different kinds of angles. But I think an overwhelming thread that runs through it, and from the things that you ladies have been saying today too, is community, and feeling a deep connection to your community and wanting to uplift that community, and whether it's solely from an environmental perspective or even just from a health perspective, or for just a betterment of your family and your surroundings. It all is interconnected, isn't it? I mean, we all have to help each other and work together to make that happen. So this is wonderful. Thank you all so much. Yeah, I've learned so much listening to your stories, and I feel so inspired. And I hope some of our listeners feel the same way. I'm looking here real quick to see if there's any burning questions. Right now, I'm seeing just a lot of really good thumbs up and hearts, and lots of folks saying thanks for these great pieces of wisdom from all of you. And I want to chime in and agree with that. And I guess I'd like to leave by sharing that this is again the beginning of Green Gary Week. Ashley, Brenda, what are some things coming up in the next couple of days that we need to let folks know about to check in on? I know we have something planned for most every day, right?
Yes. Yes. So this week, as mentioned, is our Green Gary Week, which is taking place actually beginning yesterday, Sunday, April 18th, all the way through Saturday, April 24th. And so this is like our overall week-long celebration for Earth Day. So later this week, we have scheduled, there will be a bird watching tour that will take place at Brunswick Park. That's scheduled for tomorrow. And then also we have tree plantings, more community sessions like this, and public forums available. And then also on Saturday, we have our Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day event, as well as community cleanups that will be taking place this week. If you would like more information, you can follow us on Facebook at Greener Gary. And we do have.
Oops.
We lost you, Ashley. So there are, you're going to continue?
Go ahead.
Okay, so we ask the public to be sure to tune into our Facebook page. Information from our wonderful partners change quickly, so reference the page for the latest information about each of the events. So tomorrow, the Wild Indigo Bird Watching Tour in Brunswick Park will take place at 10 o'clock to 11:30 a.m. And the afternoon session is from 2 to 3:30 p.m. So if you miss the morning, you can definitely connect with the afternoon. And for Wednesday, one of our great partners, Indiana University, along with the Student Conservation Association, will be planting trees at IUN. So that time is from 9 to 12 p.m. Just go over, if you would like to volunteer, just go over there and join in. Tell them Brenda sent you. And the Wild Indigo group will come back again on Wednesday with the Pollinators webinar. So look for that information on our website. It will start at 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. One of the things that we're doing in the city, and I'm going to wrap it up, Kim, is the climate action plan. So we've been working with Indiana University for a while now, for about 3 years. And tomorrow we will talk about our climate action plan for the city of Gary. We would like to reduce our carbon emissions by 50%. Look for Biden, the White House, to come out with their announcement on Earth Day about all of the wonderful things we will do to help protect our environment, to reduce our greenhouse gases. And we hope that you tune in. That event will start at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. on, that is on Wednesday as well. So that's all I have for you.
Yeah, thank you. So stay tuned, and that so it's Greener Gary Facebook page, correct, Ashley? That's what people should kind of follow, and they'll get the up-to-date times and info on all of the wonderful events going on this week. All right, ladies, thank you all again so much. I really appreciate your time. And thanks for being patient with me. Oh, hi, we got a little visitor there with Miss Hall. It's not a good Zoom or whatever if you don't have a baby or a pet, right? So thank you. No, but thank you, ladies. This has been very inspiring, and good luck in all your work. And I look forward to seeing you out in the community. And I hope to see everyone.
Thank you, Kim.
Here.
Thanks,
All right.
Kim.
Thanks,
All right.
Kim.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bye.
All
Bye-bye,
right.
ladies.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.